All right. We are back with a live stream. This is the second live stream of the day. The first few minutes were not working, but hopefully this works. How's it going, everybody? How is it going, Thrivers? Today we're going to be talking about brain retraining. We're going to dive deep into it, and I'm going to answer any questions you guys have around that particular topic. The whole purpose of this call, whether you're watching this live or you're watching a replay of this, is really to give you more insight and answers and tools and strategies to implement everything you need to know about brain retraining, because there's a lot of information online. I have tons and tons of videos online. However, it can be very confusing, and it can be a little bit hard to navigate, what to implement first, what to do at different parts of your recovery, and all of that. So we're going to be answering questions, and this is going to be more of a back and forth conversation with anybody who's live on this call about, about recovery. So let us dive into it. Let's see who is watching right now and online. Please share where you're from. Please share where you're from, what city you're in, what country you're from, and we could get this show underway. So just comment where you're from. I'm streaming on multiple platforms right now. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, Twitter. How's it going, Monica? Charlotte? Nice to see you, Mo. Okay, so we got Slovenia in the house. Welcome from Slovenia, Monica. Mo's from Northern Ireland. Got Denise from UK. Oral from UK. Jenny, welcome from Switzerland. Gita from Morocco. Never been to Morocco, but I definitely want to go. We got Zurich, Switzerland. We have Germany in the house. We have Romania, South Korea. Justin, nice to see you on here. We have Charlotte from the UK, got New York, Sherry. So a lot of people from YouTube tuning in. Super cool. Got another person from Zurich, Switzerland. Got someone from Montreal. On Facebook, where are you guys from? There's a few people on Facebook. It looks like we got more people on YouTube. And before we jump into this, just share how long you've been dealing with this for. How many months or how many years have you been sick with CFS or, long COVID, any of these kind of symptoms for? We got Netherlands in the house, Louisiana, got people from all over. So just know you're not the only one dealing with this. There's a lot of people who are going through these similar things, these similar symptoms, and a lot of people in the same boat, people who have had tests and scans done, and and the doctors just can't seem to find out the root cause of this stuff. So Nick, 3.5 years long COVID. Someone had it for 26 years. Someone had it for 15 years, 5 years, 11 years, 4 years, 15 years. Yeah. Any amount of time dealing with this, it definitely feels longer than the actual time. I always say 1 month feels like 1 year when it comes to dealing with this stuff, because when you're in pain, when you're kind of suffering, time just goes by very slow. I remember all the days I would be in my room just holding on for dear life, staring at the ceiling, and I'd be counting down the time for my next meal that my grandma would bring me, and man, those 4 hours in between meals, those felt like eternity. So I definitely know how you guys feel. I've been there myself. If you don't know my story, I've been hospitalized for months, bedridden for months. So it definitely feels like forever. But the cool part is I've been doing a lot of recovery interviews with folks, people who have had this at a very severe level and also got their lives back. So there is lots of hope for this. But, we always talk about how it's almost like you get 3 lives, right? You have your life before getting CFS or long COVID. And, it's probably a fast-paced life, probably a very stressful life as well, because a lot of people who get this, they're very type A. So there's the life leading up to CFS. And then there's your life in CFS, because that's like it's a whole different life experience. Even when I had it for about 4.5 years, that felt like a lifetime of experience. And then there's life after recovering. So The life after recovering is always so much better than people's previous lives. When you make it to the other side, because you come into the world with a fresh perspective, and you're able to you're able to experience things you never experienced before, like a new level of gratitude and appreciation for the simplest of things. And you don't take anything for granted. So just wanted to share that with you guys. There is absolutely hope. People are recovering all the time. And if you're here watching this right now, you're probably sitting at home or maybe lying in bed and you're looking for answers. And so that's what I'm here for today, is really to hold your guys' hand through this process, share as much as I know, about recovery in the time that we have today, which is about uh, 60 to 90 minutes, probably closer to 90 minutes. And yeah, it's completely free. Just hopping on here today to help you guys out and, see if we could get you past some of your roadblocks so we could get you to thriving health. So let us dive right into it. Who here has tried brain retraining before? Who has tried brain retraining? And it could be, anything neuroplasticity related, right? Even meditation, that is a form of brain retraining. A lot of people have tried that, but anybody try brain retraining specifically for CFS or long COVID? I just want to get a feel for the room here. We got about 30 people on. Who has tried brain retraining for CFS? Comment. Cool. So I have it, and it helped me during my first bout of long COVID. Yes. Yeah, most people have tried it. Now, who hasn't tried it? Just out of curiosity, who has not tried brain retraining? Who hasn't tried it? Okay, so it seems like most people have kind of dabbled into it. And I'm guessing if you're here right now watching this video, then you probably seen me or heard me talk about it. So essentially what brain retraining is. Okay, let's cover that first. What is brain retraining, right? Well, brain retraining is just like a fancy term for um, the action of changing the neural pathways in your brain. That's really what it is. We're trying to shift the neural pathways in your brain uh, and recalibrate your brain. So I'm going to break it down to some very simple analogies, because I know with a lot of brain fog as well, we don't want complex science. We're not trying to get a Nobel Peace Prize in terms of knowing every single detail of how every synapse and axon works in the brain. So we're going to compare your brain right now to a computer software, because that's kind of what your brain is. It's like a supercomputer. It's running billions of processes at a time that we don't even realize, right? So we may think our brain is underperforming right now. It's actually overperforming. And this is going to tie into something I cover later, which is why you're feeling all the symptoms that you're feeling. Is because your brain is overperforming. It's not underperforming. So your brain, it's like a supercomputer, and its number one job above anything else is to keep you safe. It's to keep you safe and to keep you, most of all, alive. Okay. Now, if we look at the different parts of your brain, there's your primal brain, right? And that is the the most underdeveloped brain, or not underdeveloped, it's the most primal brain, right? It is your fight or flight and survival mode, because back in the day, for the longest time in human history, we were hunter gatherers, and we would go outside the village where the village is safe. Okay. And this is a little lesson on how the brain works. And this is going to tie into everything else recovery related. For the longest time in human history, our brains were primed for safety and fight or flight or freeze. So we were hunter gatherers. A lot of the times we were in the village, we were safe. We didn't have to have this alarm system in our brain on 24/7. But we had to go out and hunt for food. We had to go out and move to different villages. When there were forest fires, we had to relocate. So it was a very primal survival task that the brain had. You'd go out into the forest and, who knows, venomous snakes could come out and bite you. There could be lions attacking you and tigers and all of that. So our fight or flight mode was activated when we were out and about doing certain things. So there was real danger out there. And the reason that alarm system was there was so we can, a lot of times when there's a major threat, we freeze, right? And let's say you're walking in the forest, you're looking for food, and you see a tiger 50 yards away from you. The initial reaction is to freeze and then assess the situation. And you're either going to fight that tiger or you're going to, there's flight. You're going to run away. You're going to assess the situation. And so that's how the brain was for the longest of times. Hunter-gatherer brain. You'd go out into the wilderness, expose yourself to danger, but when you come back to the village, you're good to go, right? So that fight or flight system turns off. Now, what has happened over the years is, if this is the entire human timeline, for like this much time, like 99% of that time, we were hunter-gatherers. So that fight or flight mode was there. And there was only so much stimulus, right? We didn't have technology. We didn't have social media. We didn't have all these different life stressors happening to us. So there was the hunter-gatherer area. The era after that was industrial revolution. So we no longer had to go out into the world and expose ourselves to this danger. We could stay at home and just use the farming equipment or the crop equipment to farm. So we no longer had to expose ourselves to that danger. But remember, for 99% of the time of the human timeline, we were expecting there to be danger. So when we're not exposing ourselves to real life dangers like that anymore, okay, for this much time we were doing that, and then this little tiny time at the end, now there's a significantly less amount of danger, your brain is still primed to look for danger. So even if it's not there, it's going to look for different things, or it'll make things up that are dangerous, or it'll replace a tiger with, something like, scary farm equipment or dangerous farm equipment. Okay. But this is going to tie in more so to how this affects us today. So we have the hunter-gatherer area. Brain is very primed for fight or flight mode. Then we had the Industrial Revolution. Significant, so danger was up here before, hunter-gatherers. Then Industrial Revolution, danger came down here. And then the technology revolution. So now we really, really aren't exposed to any physical life-threatening danger. So the actual danger, life-threatening danger, is way down here, but the stimulus nowadays is way higher, which is why so many people are in this hypersensitive state. Like, you didn't get a lot of CFS cases 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 300, not in the numbers we have today. And of course, yes, there is a bigger population, but a larger pool of the population now is getting CFS or even remnants of CFS, like early signs of it, anxiety, depression, things like that. A lot of these are precursors to CFS. I'm not saying CFS is depression, right? I don't want people to misquote me. I'm saying those can be precursors, because those are imbalances of how your brain is functioning. So for the last 100 years, right, this tiny little sliver at the end of this human timeline up to this point, now there's very little danger, but there's very high stimulus. So when that happens, your brain is going to start to think everything is a danger. And people ask me, well, why do some people get this, the CFS stuff, the long COVID, and other people don't get it? Well, it depends on people's situations, but essentially we all have this threshold for stress, right? We definitely live in a more stressed society, but depending on who you are in your situation and your upbringing, a lot of different factors, we all have different stress thresholds. So let's say, for example, your stress threshold is up here, and this is all going to tie in to brain retraining and how it works. Let's say your stress threshold is up here. Okay. Maybe you have financial stressors, relationship stressors, work stressors. Maybe it's the pressure you put on yourself with perfectionism or type A personality, always go, go, go mode. Maybe it's physical stress, right? Not sleeping enough, not eating right, taking supplements, relying too much on coffees. And then let's say you're teetering just below this limit here, and then you get something like COVID or post-viral illness, death in the family, something really stressful happens. Well, that's all that's needed to tip you over the edge of your stress threshold. And then now it triggers this alarm system in your brain where you are in that fight or flight mode. And here's the thing. Back in the day, going back to what I started with, in the hunter-gatherer days, you go out into the wilderness and then you come back. So your brain, your fight or flight mode turns on and off. But now, because there is no distinction between a lot of these different dangers, like you could be driving in traffic back in the day and someone cuts you off, that is equivalent to a tiger jumping out at you if you're in the forest back in the day. Or, you find out some very stressful news at work, or your job is on the line, or you really want to get a promotion and you're nervous about it. That's equivalent to you walking in the forest wondering if there's venomous snakes around. So it's the perceived threats. Now, your brain, once it goes over that edge of your stress threshold, well, now you're stuck in fight or flight mode. And a lot of times you get stuck in a place where your brain won't naturally come back out of that. You need to have like a manual override. Okay. So we can compare that to, back to what I was saying in the beginning, the computer software. Now the software has a glitch in it, in that it's sending your body the wrong signals because it thinks there's danger around the corner. And when you have stress for such a long period of time, eventually your brain stops trusting you. It stops trusting your decision making. So it's trying to stop you from going back out into the world and exposing yourself to this danger, because it starts to perceive everything as a threat, right? How it worked back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers is it's scanning the environment for any threats, or if there were threats in the past, it's going to scan for potential threats. It's going to anticipate things, okay? And it's going to try to avoid those life-threatening scenarios in the future. And that's a big thing here. Avoid those situations, trying to avoid those scenarios, okay? But now we live in a new world. You don't have to go out and expose yourself to tigers, but your brain doesn't know that. It still thinks all these different things are stressors. So when you're really sick and you want to go back to work, your brain knows that work was a very stressful place. Dealing with people was a very stressful thing. If I go back to work, this person puts a lot of pressure on this body to be the best and be a perfectionist. And, it knows you better than you know yourself. It knows your tendencies and your habits, because up to this point in life, what you have shown it, or the situations you've placed yourself in or that you come across, has shown your brain that there is danger and stress around. Now, it may not be your fault. Like you may have just been, I don't know, standing in line somewhere and someone sneezed, and then now you got COVID. So could you really blame yourself for that? No, you can't really. But to your brain, all it knows is that you went out and then you came back home and now you have COVID. So it's like, it doesn't care if it was your fault or not. It's just, you did this, you went out, now you got COVID. Okay, so let's not go out. And so here's where it gets crazy. And this is what really shifted things for me when I was in the hospital. And this actually helped explain the symptoms I was feeling. Because when you don't really know what's going on or understand, why you're feeling the symptoms you're feeling, or why things get worse over time, or why sometimes you feel better and then the next day you feel like you got hit by a truck. The thing that really shifted for me was realizing that my brain was putting symptoms in the way to try to protect me. Those symptoms were limiters that my body was putting on me so that I don't go back out into the world again. Because essentially, I was like a car headed off the cliff with the way I was living my life, the way my habits were, the way I was thinking, and just the level of stress I was under. There was going to be a breaking point. And eventually that car was going to go off the cliff, right? And that wouldn't have been good. So my brain, in a way, it was like, okay, This guy's running his body into the ground, maybe not intentionally, but he's working a lot. He's putting himself under a lot of mental and emotional stress. There's a lot of things going on in his life. We need to pump the brakes. And usually, for everybody on this call, you probably noticed, or if you think about it, this didn't just happen overnight. Like this was a little bit of a slow burn. You had some kind of prior symptoms. Usually it starts with, some anxiety or feeling a little bit more fatigued or having some insomnia. Um, Maybe if you're an athlete, now you're getting way more tired than before, right? And it's harder to have these longer workouts. Or maybe things just stress you out a lot more. You feel like you're on edge, or even being moody, right? Your capacity for stress, anything like mental and emotional stress, it's not as high as it used to be, right? And that's a sign that the car is going off the cliff, right? And it doesn't have to be physical symptoms. It could be mental things like feeling burnt out, feeling extra tired, feeling less capable of doing things, or just feeling overwhelmed, essentially. So usually there's a buildup, and then something happens, and then that's the thing that has a drastic change, right? So for me, for example, prior to my life changing forever, and not being able to work out for the next like 8 years of my life, and just really stepping into the CFS world, leading up to that, I was having some insomnia, I was having some anxiety, I was having exercise intolerance. Um, and then one day, I took this supplement and then ended up going to the hospital. And then the very next day, my capacity dropped by like 80%. And I couldn't do a lot of the things after that. And my symptoms exploded. So in comparison to how I was the day before, yeah, it was a completely different world. But leading up to that, there was a slow buildup. So back to what I was saying about the brain putting limiters on your body. It's trying to protect you from any potential dangers that you may expose yourself to, any dangers or risks or things that places too much stress on it. Because back to the stress threshold, we've already gone past that, right? This is kind of like redlining the engine, and the car is kind of screaming at you saying, slow down, slow down. Okay, if you're not going to slow down and we've given you early signs of this and we've shown you warning lights, well, now we're gonna make a tire explode or something. We're gonna get a flat tire. We're gonna make one of the computers in the car like break down or stop apart from working to force you to slow down. And so when I realized that my body wasn't punishing me, and first of all, it wasn't even coming from my body. The reason why I know this is because I had tests and scans and so many treatments done for my organs, my liver, like um, all these different things, and it wasn't working. Like I wasn't getting better. It helped a little bit, but it was like a band-aid fix. So I knew, okay, this isn't coming from my body. It can't be, because they scanned literally everything. Even though my heart hurts, I get chest pains, shortness of breath. My lungs are on paper perfectly fine. So what explains this level of symptoms that I'm feeling? And I learned that it was the brain. And my doctor is the one who told me that. He's the one who taught me a lot of these principles. And he taught me when I was in the hospital. And these principles are what helped me go from bedridden for 8 months. 2 of those last months I was hospitalized, to going from that to the next week using a wheelchair. The next week I was using a walker. And the next week after that, I walked out of the hospital on my own 2 feet. It was a day after my birthday, I remember. Still felt symptoms, but my capacity was increasing and I was slowly building my quality of life back up. So I realized that these symptoms aren't out to get me. They're not evil. My brain is not trying to punish me. Everything I was experiencing, it's not just my body torturing myself. Um, and I used to think that way. Every time I would go do an activity, it's like it felt like my body would make me pay for it and punish me. So it was a very negative kind of relationship I had with my body. I hated my body. I was like, I hate this. Why me? Why is this happening? It put me in a really bad mental state until I realized the reason these symptoms were happening was to try and protect me. And a way to look at it was it's just a software issue. Your brain is sending the wrong signals to your body. Well, I wouldn't say it's the wrong signals, because if it is trying to protect you from doing all these other stressors, then yes, it is doing its job. It's stopping you from continuing the path you were going down or exposing yourself to more stress. It's trying to keep you safe, basically in hibernation mode, right? So we have fight or flight mode, which is like dumps of adrenaline, feeling completely overwhelmed, symptoms going crazy, right? But it's kind of a mix between fight or flight mode and freeze mode, right? What does what happens when something terrifying comes up, right? For example, you're walking in the forest, you see a grizzly bear standing 20 feet away from you that you didn't see. Your initial reaction is to freeze, right? Now, what does the freeze and fight or flight mode sound like? That sounds like a crash or a very severe adjustment period, a really intense one. So, and I don't want you to think too deeply about this in terms of like going back to the past, but the times when I was crashing the hardest, it felt like I was in freeze mode, like a forced freeze mode, and fight or flight, because I'm lying in bed, I can't move, but my heart is pounding, my whole body was pulsing, the room is spinning. And even if I tried to roll over in bed, my body would give me extreme pain and extreme symptoms. So it's kind of a mix between fight or flight and freeze mode, right? Your software, the brain is glitching out. So it's causing this forced fight or flight / freeze mode. And an analogy for that, it's kind of like if you have a car and you're stepping on the gas all the way, redlining the engine, but your foot is also on the brake at the same time. And it's a rear wheel drive car with front brakes. So imagine a car doing a burnout. So it's using up all this energy, but it's also slamming on the brakes. That's kind of what your brain's doing to your body, because it's just confused. And it's just pulling out all its survival instincts. And those things are automatic. It gets to the point where, you don't even realize it's happening, but it will do it automatically. Like you don't have control over these things. But what you do have control over is slowly shifting that brain out of survival mode. Because with these physical symptoms that are happening, the thing that fuels this survival mode is emotions and stimulus, right? Well, I want to say mainly it's stimulus. But what is very stimulating on the nervous system is emotions. Now, I want to make it 100% clear. I'm not saying this is all in your mind. I'm not saying you can just think positive and the next day you'll be walking around again fine. It's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying a big chunk of why people stay stuck or get worse or their flare-ups are more intense and prolonged is because the emotions are like adding fuel to the fire. Because what those emotions are doing, it's only adding to the fight or flight or survival mode. That's stress mode. So we have to be mindful of when we are going on that emotional downward spiral, or when we start telling ourselves stories or worst case scenarios. I just made a video about this a few days ago. Our body is hyper vigilant, right? It's trying to protect us. So depending on where you're at right now, you may even feel that even thinking of doing an activity will cause symptoms. For me, whenever I had doctor's appointments coming up and it was like a month away and I was bedridden, even thinking of that appointment, I would get heart palpitations, because now I'm imagining, oh, I have to go downstairs and I have to sit in the wheelchair and sit in the car. If I sit in the car, will that drain me of all my energy? And then if I go there, are they going to force me to walk around? They won't understand. Are they going to give me medication and then my body's going to react bad? Is this going to set me back 3 months in recovery? So that's just scratching the surface. Those are some of the questions I asked myself. And there are about 100 more other questions. So with emotions, it really is like pouring fuel on the fire, right? So what brain retraining is being aware of your response to the symptoms. I always say the golden rule in recovery is your success is determined by how well you respond to symptoms, But let's go even deeper than that. It's your response to the emotions behind the symptoms. Because yes, the symptoms are uncomfortable. Yes, it sucks. It's annoying. But what's at the deepest level? What is the actual fear that's going to happen? Because for me, I thought it was the symptoms, but I realized down the road in recovery, I could have the same symptoms, but it's a different experience of the symptoms if I knew exactly what was going on. So at the very core level, my deepest fear, and what I hear from most people I talk to, and I've talked to literally thousands of people, the ultimate fear is that we're going to die. The ultimate fear is that this is going to kill us or shut our body down. And when I realized that wasn't going to happen, it really took a huge weight off my shoulders. Now, I had to be realistic about it too. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to suck. Just because it doesn't kill you doesn't mean the extreme body aches and pain is very difficult to deal with and challenging. But knowing that it wasn't going to kill me and I wasn't just going to drop dead, that was a big safety net that I had. And something my doctor told me when I was at the point where I was in a wheelchair in the hospital, when he was teaching me about all these things, he said, you know, even with all your extreme symptoms, if you were to go outside and walk across the street and use your legs and do 100 times more activity than you've done, you would feel a lot of symptoms. It wouldn't be a good time, but it wouldn't kill you. And when I realized that, that's when everything changed. Well, that's one of the things that made things change. Knowing that it would be uncomfortable, I would bend, but I wouldn't break. And realizing that it was a huge mind shift for me, because what your body will do or what your brain will do, it'll put these limiters in place, but its whole job is to protect you and keep you safe. It's not, at least for me, I knew it wasn't going to kill me. It wasn't like, if the whole purpose of it is to keep me safe and give me symptoms to protect me, it's not going to shut my body down. It may feel like it, but it's not going to happen. So what we have to do is realize how much our emotions can fuel the fire. Okay. Because you can have, let's say, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a chart or a scale we use a lot within our programs. It's like the scale of pain and the scale of fatigue, right? Now, overall, you can have a rough scale of how you're feeling, if your symptoms are. If one is very minimal symptoms, almost not noticeable, that's 1 on the scale, and 10 is the most symptoms you've ever experienced. That's you being rushed to the hospital in emergency, you being bedridden and can't move. If that's a 10, where are you at on that scale, right? And let's say, for me, there were times when I was 4 out of 10 in terms of physical symptoms, physical discomfort in my body. If it was a 4 out of 10, that's manageable. But if I started panicking about the symptoms, or started to go on this downward mental spiral about the symptoms, if I started telling the stories to myself like, uh-oh, my legs hurt, but I'm in the middle of a mall. How am I going to get to my car? If I don't make it to my car, am I going to have to call an ambulance? What if I start getting shortness of breath? What if I crash in the mall? Did I do too much? Should I have stayed home? Maybe, maybe I should have waited a few more days. Now that my legs hurt right now, am I going to be able to go to that friend get together in a few days from now, or did I wipe myself out? So if I started telling myself those things and asking myself those what if questions, well, now that scale, that 4 out of 10 discomfort, that just doubled. That went to like a 7 or an 8, right? And the thing with this is, a lot of people who get this, we're analytical to begin with. Like we're typically type A personalities, tend to be overthinkers, deep thinkers, analytical people. So all of those things are amplified when you have this, because CFS, it will amplify any senses that you have. So tendencies that you had before, they're going to be amplified, right? A lot of people who are type A leading up to this point, or perfectionists about work, about their hobbies, about their goals, they still have those tendencies. And here's the interesting thing, what I've seen and I've experienced, those tendencies just change focus. So now instead of focusing or hyper focusing on work and being perfectionist about work and hobbies and these extremely high standards you have for yourself, well, now that just shifts to recovery. So even though you're not working anymore, or may not be working, or you don't have all these things to do, well, now you have recovery. So those personality traits and habits spill into recovery. And now it ends up in you tracking your steps, checking your heart rate every 30 minutes, wearing a heart rate monitor on your wrist, checking your blood pressure, buying a blood pressure cuff, tracking how you feel every single day, and being a perfectionist about recovery. So it just changes focus from other things to recovery. And that can drive you deeper into the hole. So we have to be mindful of what our emotions and thoughts are around the symptoms. Because I can tell you that once I learned the science behind this and learned that my body was not trying to kill me, it was actually trying to protect me. And there was a logical process that was happening um, to cause my symptoms, right? And it didn't all come from physical things. A lot of my flare ups actually came mainly due to an anticipation of a flare up. So when I realized how much emotions play into my symptoms or into my flare ups, or how much they can amplify the flare ups, then I had to be aware when I was going on that downward spiral. And this is why the main thing I stuck to in recovery, the number one thing I told myself all the time, whenever I had any doubts or symptoms or started to question things, I had to remind myself the golden rule in recovery is your success in recovery is determined by how well you respond to symptoms. If you get that one thing right and respond well to symptoms, you will recover. And when I say respond well to symptoms, any kind of physical symptoms, leg pain, blurry vision, tinnitus, floaters, headaches, migraines, um, things like that, those those are symptoms. I also saw negative thinking and being hyper emotional and worrying. I saw those as byproducts of this hypersensitive nervous system, this survival mode, because I never thought like that before, at least not to this level. I wasn't that much of a worrier before. I did worry about things, but not at this level. I was terrified if I walk too fast, I might have a heart attack, or if I sit up too fast on a bed, I'm going to crash. So these thoughts, I was able to, I tried to separate myself from them. I did the best I could to realize that these are irrational thoughts, and these are not thoughts that a normal person would think. And these are thoughts that are going to keep me stuck in the cycle. These are what if thoughts. So anytime you get a what if thought, that's a definite signal or sign that your nervous system is in hyperdrive, or you're in that place of survival. What if this happens? What if that happens? You're thinking of worst case scenarios. So I always brought it back to the basic thing of my success is determined by how well I respond to symptoms. Just respond well. Just respond well. And I always had to remind myself anytime I got emotional, anytime I got emotional, I just told myself it's just a hypersensitive nervous system. It's just a hypersensitive nervous system. It's just a hypersensitive nervous system. Because when I say that to myself, it's one sentence, but that sentence comes with so much logic and science behind it. That makes sense. The more logical you turn this into, like, the more logical you can see CFS, the less emotional you will be about it. The reason we're so emotional about this, and it's terrifying and it's scary, is because we don't have answers for it, right? Or at least maybe until finding my channel, you didn't have answers. You go to the doctors, they don't even know what's going on, which is terrifying. Not only that, they're actually telling you you're perfectly normal, or at least your tests are showing up normal. So that's even scarier. So now you think you have some hidden mysterious disease that there isn't a cure for. So what do you do next? You go to Google and search up, what is CFS? Next thing you know, you're seeing Google say 5% recovery rate. People having this for 30 years, 40 years. You can't recover from this. You can go into remission, which is absolute garbage. I'll tell you right now, that is absolute garbage. Whoever wrote that stuff, they need to be held accountable, because the people writing that stuff, one, either never had it, or two, are still sick and they haven't recovered themselves. But there's so many people out there who recover. We know this for a fact. So don't read any of that garbage. That's a side tip. But when we don't have logical answers to this, we tend to come up with our own answers for this. We try to figure out what's going on our own. And when you're in a hypersensitive state and highly emotional, and who wouldn't be emotional? I get it, right? You've lost some of your identity, potentially lost your job, potentially losing relationships, potentially losing friends, potentially losing opportunity, potentially feeling like you're sitting on the sidelines of life while everybody gets to move forward. You're stuck, or you feel like you're moving backwards. Then you start asking yourself, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? Why is the universe punishing me? So when we're in a very emotional state, we can come up with emotional conclusions, things that may not make the most sense, but it's the best thing we can make of it at the time, because humans innately want answers, right? We want explanations to things, because things we don't understand, we fear. So if we don't understand CFS or how this all works, how you even got sick or what's causing the symptoms, we're going to fear that. Anything we don't understand, we fear, just as humans. That's why, if there was a UFO to come out of the sky, tomorrow, like an alien spaceship, everybody would be terrified, because we don't know what they're capable of. We don't understand it. We don't get it. It's overwhelming. So the more logic you have with all of this, the more things you understand, the more you educate yourself, and educate yourself in a way that it's not overwhelming and where it actually makes sense, not to a point where it's confusing. The more logic you have, the less emotional you will be. So your brain can only do one of those things at a time, or it only has a certain capacity for activity, right? And there's logic and there's emotion, because emotion, that's all processed in your survival brain, The other brain you have is your logical brain, your prefrontal cortex. But I don't want to go too deep into that and get sciencey, but essentially it's a balance of logic and emotion. To go through life, you need both for sure. But when you have CFS, emotion is all the way up here and logic is way down here, which is why when you're flaring up in adjustment periods, sometimes, you can be saying crazy things, and you won't realize that until you're out of the adjustment period and you start realizing, man, I can't believe I thought that, or I can't believe I said that. I really thought I was going to die. So, when you're in a very emotional state, that's what's causing the symptoms. So we've covered the foundation of kind of what led to all of this, right? The science behind what's going on. So let's talk about brain retraining and what can we do about it? So what is the actual solution, right? Because once we understand what caused this, we understand why these symptoms are persisting or why we're stuck in this cycle and we can't seem to break through this recovery plateau or this recovery ceiling. It's like, how do we get to the next level? So what is the solution for this? Well, the solution is shifting your brain from this survival state into this more logical state, or shifting it out of survival mode, shifting it out of this hypervigilant mode, right? We want to shift you from surviving to thriving, right? And that's our whole motto here. It's, you're just one mind shift away from living a life of thriving health. So with brain retraining, essentially, it's almost like we're rerouting the circuitry in your brain. We're rerouting it. That's what it is. And this starts with awareness of what's happening. On a very specific level, let's take, for instance, if I was really sick and then I have to get something downstairs to get a glass of water or something, and I'm still functional. I go downstairs, then I start walking upstairs. I start getting palpitations and my legs start burning. Now, what happens next? And you guys have all probably experienced this. Initially, your brain is going to go, uh-oh, here it comes. I'm getting symptoms now. Or, oh, my heart's skipping. I wonder if my heart's going to be able to handle this. Or am I going to have a heart attack? The moment you are aware of those stories that your brain is telling you, you have to remind yourself it's just the nervous system, or tell yourself something to get you away from that fear state, or something to slowly shift you out of that fear and survival state, that fight or flight mode. So for me, it was always telling myself, no, you're safe. You're going to be okay. This is just the nervous system. And it's so important, that word just. It's just the nervous system, just the hypersensitive nervous system, because that's really all it is. So it almost kind of downplays it as well. Recovery doesn't have to be this grueling, torturous, horrible task. You can have fun during recovery. Some of my most memorable moments in my life were during recovery, when my friends were in the room and we were talking, cracking jokes. There were actually some good times during recovery, despite the symptoms, despite me being bedridden sometimes. There were moments I remember that were so, I think, it was interesting experiencing life on a very raw level, right? And now my life is very, very busy. I feel like I'm not as present, but that's one of the things I experienced when I was bedridden. I was very present a lot of the times. But anyways, back to what I was saying. You want to be aware of when these stories start unraveling in your brain, and you have to remind yourself it's just a hypersensitive nervous system. So we're rerouting the circuitry to go down from going down a route of what if, worst case scenarios, hypervigilant survival mode, to it's just the nervous system. We're rerouting it from emotion to logic. And you have to do that over and over and over again. And the thing is that you would call that brain retraining, right? That brain retraining only really takes 1 to 2 seconds. It's a split-second decision telling yourself, no, I'm not going to die. It's just a hypersensitive nervous system. And you have to say that over and over and over again and remind yourself, because right now the automatic route your brain's going to go down is survival mode and fight or flight mode, right? And so you want to reroute that to something more logical. No, it's just a hypersensitive nervous system. And in doing that, you're teaching your brain that it doesn't need that one, it's not going to shut down and you're just going to drop dead. 2, that you don't need to be in this fight or flight survival mode anymore, right? And you're just essentially, with lots of reps, you are retraining it to go down the route of logic. And logic is basically the opposite of emotion, complete opposite. So right now we're highly emotional, and that's what keeps the fight or flight mode alive. And you will automatically, your brain will want to go down that emotional route and make things seem way worse than they are. It will catastrophize a lot of things, and you can't take the bait. All of these thoughts and worries and fears that you're having, most of them are not going to happen, number 1. And 2, they're just bait your brain is dangling to try to keep you in this hypersensitive state and keep you in this fight or flight mode, this survival mode. It'll do anything it can to keep you in that place. So the symptoms are tools it uses to keep you in this hibernation mode, and you have to recognize that. So brain retraining, it is really a process of rerouting the circuitry. And back to the software analogy, the software clearly has a glitch. Your brain is sending inappropriate signals to your body that aren't needed right now because your life isn't at risk. I'm going to assume, there's no tiger in your hallway or outside your house. So there is no immediate threat to your life, but your brain doesn't know that. It just thinks the whole world is just filled with stress. That is its perception of it, which is why everything can feel pretty scary when you have this, or it can feel intimidating and overwhelming because your brain perceives almost everything as a threat, even the food you eat, to taking a shower, to sitting in a car. And this is also why, if you're able to go to a mall, public places with lots of movement and unpredictable people is very overwhelming for people, because that's a lot of stress, a lot of potential danger for your brain. So it's a game of repetition, but the more you do it, the better you respond to symptoms, the shorter your adjustment periods will be, and the less intense your symptoms will feel. But essentially, it is like slowly updating your software over time. Right now, there's a big glitch in the software. So that software isn't just going to fix itself, which is why you can't wait this out. You know, you can't sit in bed or sit on a couch and just wait for this to go away. It doesn't happen ever, ever. You cannot wait this out. You have to actively participate in your recovery and actually do things like brain retraining in order to get out of this. It's a very manual process. At first, it's manual, but eventually your brain catches on to what you're trying to do, and it will automatically run that brain retraining script. It's like programming for your brain. You say it enough times. For me, I had to remind myself a lot of times in the beginning, as in every 30 seconds, I'm telling myself, when I have a worry, oh, it's just a hypersensitive nervous system. You do that enough times, your brain starts to catch on to what you're doing. So it starts just saying it subconsciously. And it starts thinking more logically, and you don't have to manually do it all the time. So that's the main brain retraining I teach on this channel. It's rerouting that circuitry and shifting, trying to shift out of that survival mode. So that's one form of brain retraining. The other form of brain retraining is brain retraining for chronic pain. And this is for headaches, body aches and pains, burning sensations. I remember my arms and legs would feel like they were burning, and prickly sometimes, pins and needles. I'd get headaches. A lot of burning pain. Now, when we realized, okay, this is not coming from your body, and the way you know this is a chronic pain case is if pain moves around your body. Sometimes you get it in your legs, sometimes in your eyes, sometimes in your arms, and it comes and goes, and also it moves around in your body. That's how you know it's chronic pain. This is a process that's being experienced in the brain. So your arms and legs are actually completely fine, but you are feeling pain there. It's your brain that's sending signals to those areas of your body. There's a specific brain retraining you can do, which is the brain retraining for chronic pain. Just search it up on my YouTube channel. There's a very easy exercise to do. This is public. You can find it in, it's not too popular, but it really worked for me. I had headaches for years. So this helped me go from headaches every day, burning sensations on my arms and legs to, I get maybe 2 headaches a year, maybe 3. And all my chronic pain is gone. And other diagnosed fibromyalgia patients, we've worked with plenty of them. Their pain goes away when they do this exercise. And fibromyalgia is one of those things they say you can't recover from. You just have to take ketamine therapy or painkillers, which are all just coping mechanisms that dig you deeper in the hole. You have to fix the problem from within. So this brain retraining exercise will work for fibromyalgia or any kind of chronic pain. So search it up on my YouTube channel. It essentially has to do with a lot of visualization. And if you're not a visual person, we also have a guided video that helps you picture, those brain centers in your brain expanding and also contracting. But I hope that makes sense for people. That was a very long-winded explanation of what brain retraining is and why this is even a brain problem, because that's one of the things that I think is a precursor to doing brain retraining. Is if you still believe that this is a body issue and this is a mitochondria issue, and that's the root cause, brain retraining may not really work, because you're going to be worrying you're going to be wondering if you're working on the right thing. You're going to be not as bought into the exercises. You won't even believe what you're saying when you're saying it's not just a hypersensitive nervous system, but it might be the mitochondria. Sure, there might be mitochondrial things happening, But what powers the mitochondria? What is the driver of mitochondria? It's the brain. The brain is the driver of everything in the nervous system, which is why so many symptoms overlap. It's really hard to pinpoint the fact that this is a hypersensitive nervous system issue, because you can test for all these different organs and processes in the body and take physical x-rays and CAT scans, but you can't test for a hypersensitive nervous system. So usually it's by process of elimination that people realize they're dealing with a hypersensitive nervous system. But let me know if this makes sense so far. Is this making sense? So let's do a little test here, because I've been talking for almost an hour. In a nutshell, in 1 or 2 sentences, comment what causes you to be in a hypersensitive state, or why is your body in a hypersensitive state? What is your brain trying to do when it's making you hypersensitive and giving you symptoms? Just comment while I take a sip of my coffee. What has caused your nervous system to reach this hypersensitive state where it's constantly giving you symptoms? What has caused this? I'll give you guys 30 seconds. Okay. Stress, anxiety, panic that is suppressed, health anxiety, intrusive thoughts. Okay, let's get more specific though. Let's get even more specific. What has caused this? And it may be different for different people. There's a lot of different factors, but in a nutshell, why has the nervous system been triggered into this fight or flight mode? Okay. We're close to the answer. Stress, anxiety, panic, trauma, intrusive thoughts, long COVID, childhood trauma, negative thinking, protect us from situations perceived as dangerous, protect us from burning out. The brain's threat detection system is oversensitive, perceiving danger everywhere, trying to keep us safe. Yeah, that's a great answer. Here we go. I like this one, this answer. This is what you want to do. You don't want to blame this on any individual thing or any individual stressor, because it's not just one stressor. It's a lot of different stressors combined together. But whoever this is, AL, if you're watching on YouTube, this is the answer I was looking for. The stress threshold, stress threshold has been reached, regardless of what the stress was. Relationships, finances, trauma, anything like that. Every single person who is dealing with this, the reason you're here is because your stress threshold has been reached. And that is what has triggered this alarm system in your body, this fight or flight mode and survival state. Now, let's take it a step further. So now we know what caused this. It is the stress threshold that was reached. Why does it give you symptoms, though? Why does it give you those symptoms? So we know your stress threshold was reached. Now you're in fight or flight mode. Why the symptoms? Why is it giving you all these physical symptoms and brain fog, headaches, body aches and pains? There we go. And some of you might have gave the answer earlier, but yeah, why is it giving you those things? What is the purpose of this? Yeah, what is the purpose of the symptoms? Yeah, I'll rephrase my question. What is the purpose of those symptoms? Nice to see you on here, Sonata. Nice. I like it. Just to protect you from further stress. Yes. Gives us symptoms to slow down and stop us from the activity. to get us to slow down, to pay attention. It needs to keep us safe, doesn't care about anything else. Absolutely. Amygdala triggered to keep you safe, to teach me that everything is dangerous now. And okay. The purpose of the symptoms is to protect you, but you have to teach your brain that you don't need protection, and that's by responding well. Exactly. Nice. Okay, you guys are soaking this up like a sponge, doing a little masterclass here. So that's exactly right. The symptoms are there to try to protect you. These are protection mechanisms, right? It has your best interests at heart, and your best interest is to stay alive. It doesn't care about you being happy, right? So if it's going to give you symptoms and it's going to upset us because now we can't go out to hang out with our friends, it doesn't care. Its number one job is to keep you alive and shield you from stress if it's at a high enough level. So yes, the symptoms are there to keep you safe and protect you from any other stressors you're bringing onto it, and protect you from any situations that it's been exposed to in the past. Here's a really good one. It doesn't trust your decision making, so it's creating an illness to put a spanner in the works of potentially harming activities. Yes, it doesn't trust your decision making process, so it overrides your decision making. It's like, nope, we're going to keep this person in fight or flight mode or protection mode. Exactly. Now, when it comes to brain retraining, what is the general idea of the purpose of it? What are we trying to do? What is the goal when we're brain retraining? What is the ultimate goal? Why do we brain retrain? That's the next question. So comment down below. What is the purpose of brain retraining? What are we trying to accomplish? Nice. Brain retraining to reroute neural pathways, thoughts, and change our behavior in response to symptoms. Yes. To rebalance the nervous system. Nice. To learn to react well, to not panic and stay calm. Brain retraining. The purpose of it is to show it that we are safe. We don't need protecting from food, people, walking, etc. Showing the brain that we are safe. Yes. In a nutshell, at the end of the day, brain retraining, the whole purpose of it is to shift you out of survival mode and into thrival mode. Basically, to pull you out of this survival state, to turn off the alarm system. That is the purpose of brain retraining. It's to turn off the alarm system, right? And the way to do that is by teaching your brain that there is no actual danger around, no life-threatening danger, and that we are actually safe, and it's okay to let our guard down now and not be as hypervigilant. So yeah, brain retraining, the whole purpose of it is to shift us out of this survival mode, to turn off the alarm system. That's what it is. And when you can turn off the alarm system, well, now you start to have more energy, more capacity. So two things happen. Your symptoms start to come down, and then your energy starts to come back up. These are the physical changes that you will feel once your alarm system once you start to turn the dial down on the alarm system. Because there's no real way to it doesn't work like you push a button and then you go from alarm mode on to alarm mode off. It's more like a dial. You're turning it down over time. So that hypervigilance, it slowly lowers over time, which is why the symptoms slowly lower over time as well. So over time, physically, symptoms are going to be coming down, and then energy will start coming back up, right? And the reason we don't have much energy is because your brain, it's just, we don't need to give this person energy, because if we give them energy, they're going to go run out into the world again and expose themselves to danger. So we're going to sap all this person's energy, make it so that they can't get out of bed or leave the house. That way they definitely can't go out and expose themselves to more danger. So some examples of brain retraining. And again, brain retraining, all we're doing is rerouting a lot of our emotions and our thoughts. So let's say I stand up too fast to go grab some water, and then I get some heart palpitations. Immediately, back in the day, I would think, "Uh-oh, am I having a heart attack?" I remind myself, "Nope, I'm not. It's just a hypersensitive nervous system. This is just a symptom that comes along with it. It's a glitch." That's brain retraining right there. You have to believe it too. To a certain degree, you have to believe what you say. Maybe not 100%, but essentially, every time you make that decision to remind yourself it's just a nervous system, every time you add in a little bit more logic, it's like you're throwing water on the fire. And if you think about emotions, think about it like a fire, right? And this is a really good analogy because with emotions, think of the times where you were like a little bit worried about something. And the more you worried about it, the more it snowballed into a bigger and bigger issue, a bigger problem, until it's this uncontrollable forest fire of emotions, and you just kind of have to let it die down. And then after that, you feel wiped out. So emotions paired with symptoms, it's kind of like a forest fire that spreads. When you add in logic into the equation, that's like pouring water on the fire. So ideally, the more logic you have with all of this, the more water you're pouring on the fire. Now, sometimes the fire is so big, it reaches to that point where it's so big where that water isn't really doing much. It's like if you have a massive building on fire and you try to use a garden hose to spray it, the water is evaporating before it's even hitting the fire because it's so hot, right? And the only way to deal with that fire is to let it run its course, right? The building's going to burn down, or the fire is eventually going to die out. At that point, it's a waiting game. But you want to attack these fires when they're small or smaller. So these emotions, that's why it's really important to be as aware as you can and recognize them early on so they don't become this huge forest fire of emotions. So that's why whenever I notice myself even have the slightest worry or the slightest doubt of recovery or the slightest you know overthinking thought about a symptom, immediately I had to put that fire out. It's so much easier to put a fire out when it's small and contained versus when it's massive. And you don't even need as much water to put it out. So might as well do it early on. So the way I saw it, as throughout the day, there were many, many, many fires that were starting up, right? Just randomly out of nowhere. Because I'd get a symptom here, then I'd start to think about it. It's like, uh-oh, is it coming back? Boom. I had to immediately throw water on that when it's small, right? Now, let's say you start with a small fire. I can take water in this cup and it can put out the whole fire if I catch it early enough. But let's say now this room is on fire. This cup of water isn't going to do anything. So that's why it's so much easier to stop it in its tracks, those emotions, and that downward spiral before it gets big. It's like a snowball, right? The emotions snowball and those emotions lead to a lot of physical symptoms. They go hand in hand, right? So most people just try to deal with the symptoms, okay? But when you do that, you're not looking at the root cause of it, right? And this is assuming that you've done all your medical tests and scans and there is no explanation for the symptoms. If the doctors can't find anything that is causing the symptoms, then it is coming from your brain. And your brain, it's the emotion that that's fueling this fire. But does that make sense for everybody? That fire analogy, right? You want to put it out when it's small because it also takes a lot less energy and effort to put that fire out when it's really small. It could just be one sentence and boom, that fire's out. Versus if I let that play in my head on and on, it's like, uh-oh, wait, heart palpitations. Am I having a heart attack? Uh-oh. Ooh, should I go to the hospital? I hope it doesn't happen again. Uh-oh, it happened again. Okay, this is not good. So if I let that story run even for 10 seconds, that fire is growing. Whereas I could have just put that fire out in the first 2 seconds and it wouldn't have grown, right? Let me know if that makes sense. I actually just came up with that analogy right now. I'll probably make a YouTube video about that. Let me actually write that down. I think that would be a good video. Give me a second. This is how I do my YouTube videos. I just randomly think of stuff. Hold on. Fire analogy and putting it out with water. Emotions are like fire. Better to put out the fire when it's small. It takes less effort and energy. All right. That's a YouTube video right there. Let's see. Yeah, does that make sense? Only a couple people answered. I'm still getting like tons of questions. I want to know, does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, Siri is awesome. Dr. Dooms, yes, I used to twitch all over my body. Definitely used to twitch a lot. Yay. As someone said here, yeah, best to nip it in the bud. Best to nip it in the bud. Get it early while it's easier to put out. Get those fires early. And during the day, how many times was I brain retraining each day? I don't know. I didn't count. At least a few hundred times. Because brain retraining, it only takes like 2 seconds, 1 or 2 seconds. But think of how many times you tell yourself something negative or worrying during the day. I can't even count. It's like almost every minute my brain was like, should I do that? No, maybe I should do that. Or it's like constantly scanning my body to notice these symptoms. And I had to nip it in the butt before it got big. So I was, I don't know, probably a few hundred times a day. But I don't want people to get the idea that I was sitting there for hours, repeating to myself like a crazy person, it's just my nervous system. It's just my nervous system. It's just my nervous system. No, I wasn't like sitting in a corner, rocking back and forth saying that. I was like, I'd be going to the washroom, and on my way to the washroom, I feel some symptoms. I'm like, it's just a nervous system. On the way back from the washroom, it's just a nervous system. When I'm eating food and I get a few heart skips, it's just a nervous system. So it's like, it's more so repetition than, it's more so repetition than like the intensity of the brain retraining. Brain retraining doesn't have to be intense at all. It can be spread out. It really is repetition. Here's a perfect analogy. Actually, check this out. Let me pull up this video. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this on Facebook, but okay, let me just rock splitting. So this is one of the videos we have inside one of our programs, actually all of our programs, and perfect way to explain brain retraining. I'm going to put it in the Facebook comment section. And then on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, I'm going to share my screen. So check this out. This is like brain retraining. Repetition, okay? It's kind of like rock splitting. Here's a perfect analogy for this. Now, this is a massive boulder. It's a massive rock. Let me see if I could actually share this on Facebook, because I want you guys to see it too. No, unfortunately, I can't share it on Facebook, but I put the video in the Facebook comments. But look at this guy. He's probably been here all day or for weeks on end. Who knows how many times he hit that thing. There's all these different spikes, right? But what does this have to do with brain retraining? Like, what are the similarities? One, consistency, right? He's hitting it over and over again. Two, high repetition, right? Number three is you have to keep doing it, even if you're not getting any results off the bat, knowing that eventually this rock will split. So knowing that all your efforts are actually going to pay off in the end. You may not see any results right off the bat, right? But you had to be consistent and you have to believe that, okay, this is going to work eventually. So every time he hits this, imagine that like you calming down your thoughts and saying, it's just the nervous system, right? Or bringing logic into the equation. Every time you make that split-second decision in 1 or 2 seconds, that's like him hitting this. Now check this out. Eventually this is going to crack. And this is what we call a mind shift in recovery, right? And this is what causes a massive level up in progress because it's almost like the circuitry connects in your brain, right? And you recalibrate certain parts of your brain and it all clicks, right? So check this out. So, like I said, he's been here for probably weeks, maybe days. He's hit it hundreds of times with no visible signs of progress. So one would ask, why would he keep doing that? Like he's just there, nothing's happening. Check this out. All the hard work will pay off when you have that mind shift. And now your body unlocks a new level of capacity for you and drastically reduces your symptoms. Check this out. It's cracking. Boom. See that? We didn't see really any changes, but all of a sudden, boom, the whole thing falls apart and it cracks, right? This is like a mind shift. Imagine if he stopped 10 hits prior to that and he just left and he said, nah, this doesn't work. It's not going to work. He wouldn't get the job done. But eventually, all those repetitions, all those hits, they add up. That is exactly how recovery works. So you have to keep going. You have to keep implementing the things, even if you don't see immediate results. And that's the reason why a lot of people give up on brain retraining. They say it's too hard to stick to, it's too hard to do, it takes too much energy. But I would argue that it takes more energy to stay sick and not do anything and just kind of hope for the best, and leave it up to chance or time and wait this thing out. That takes way more energy than doing the brain retraining, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this live training. Let me know if you got something out of this. Comment down below if you found this helpful. What was your biggest takeaway? Actually, comment down below. What was your biggest takeaway? Because we covered a lot of different things, dove deep into the brain retraining and how this works. Let's see what your guys' biggest takeaways were. I'd love to hear. My voice is like I'm losing my voice because I've been talking so much. Well, let's see. What were you guys' biggest takeaways? Let's see. Yeah, the rock splitting analogy is a game changer. It's huge. That is one of uh, you know, it's a really important module in one of our programs. Well, all of our programs actually. But brain retraining is actually simpler than people think. You don't have to do anything fancy. It's more so, do you understand the purpose of it? If you understand the purpose of it, it makes a huge, huge difference, a massive difference. Yeah, I'm going to highlight this comment. That 5% recovery rate is garbage. I really needed to hear that. Oh, absolute garbage. In fact, you know what's crazy? I don't even know if I should bring this up, but I was on Twitter yesterday, diving into the CFS world and long COVID world, and I was trying to give people hope and share inspiration. And man, these people, they're pretty darn convinced that you can't recover from this, and they're waiting for a magic pill to come along to save them. I can tell you that, sure, there might be a magic pill at some point in the future that can fix all of this, and you could wait and leave it up to chance, or you could take control of your health now and do something that's already been proven to work. Like there's so many recovery stories out there. We know people can recover from this, and we know recovery is predictable. Like it's not some flip of a coin thing where, hopefully you get better. No, there is a proven process to recover right now. So it's interesting seeing what's online out there. There's a group of people who think it's all up to chance and they can't do anything about it. And this thing fell from the sky. And if you go through this illness with that mindset, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So you do have to take responsibility for what happens moving forward in your future. Now, it may not have been all your fault, of what happened to you, because like some people get long COVID. Sometimes there's a death in the family. Sometimes the way life just plays out at a certain chapter in your life, there's just too many stressors at that time, and then you end up going over your stress threshold. So you may not be fully responsible for what caused you to arrive at this place in life, but what you are responsible for is your future and your recovery. And you need to take full accountability for what happens to you. And I think that's just a much more empowering way of going through life than thinking this thing fell from the sky and you have no control over it. Um, that's not the way a thriver thinks. A thriver, and all of you guys watching this right now, the reason you're here is because you are looking for solutions. A thriver is somebody who's not willing to settle for this life of CFS. Despite what people say online and saying it's not possible to recover, a thriver is not somebody to just roll over and accept that as the rest of their life. I know that wasn't me, and I was going to go down. Uh, I was going to go down fighting. I wasn't just going to give up and say, "All right, 5% recovery rate. Okay, you're right." No, that is absolute garbage. So, yeah, it's always believe in yourself. You can get out of this, and in the blink of an eye, you're going to be on a beach somewhere or with your friends out at a restaurant or a mall, and you're going to think back to all the times where you thought you couldn't get better, and you're going to say, "I'm glad I stuck to it. I'm glad I put in the work to get out of this because now I have my life back." And I can tell you, your life after recovery is going to be better than your previous life. We all think about going back to what we used to do, and my life before, I was able to do X, Y, Z, so many things. I can tell you, the only way to get out of this is to level up uh, who you are as a person and a lot of the mental habits you have. So by the time you make it back into life, you're going to be equipped with so many tools and you're going to be prepared for the world. And once you come out of this and it's intentional, not by luck, not by waiting and getting lucky, once you know exactly what to do and you follow the steps and brain retrain and you get your life back and you know exactly how you got your life back, you're going to understand how your body works at a whole different level. And you're never going to fall into this again, at least not to this level. Maybe you get COVID again in the future, takes you out for 2 weeks, and then you're back on your feet, living your life again. So hope this helps, guys. If you did want some extra help, like this is one 90-minute call. We have 6 of these calls a week inside of our programs. So if you're hearing these things and you're actually able to ask questions on a live call and you're seeing people get better all the time and they're sharing their wins, if you feel like that would be helpful, then you could check out the program, see if it would be helpful for you. I know it will. If you're watching this right now, this is just like a little taster of all the different resources we have on top of a personalized plan. Like we do personalized plans for people. So imagine all these topics and we're able to kind of cherry pick what's applicable to you and come up with a plan for you. That's what we help people with. So if you did want some extra help, you can apply for one of our programs. And we have a questionnaire. We actually have a new website as well, cfsrecovery.com. That just went live this week. And there's a questionnaire to see if you're even a good fit for something like this, if brain retraining is going to work for you, if you even have CFS along COVID. And also if you do, what level of help do you need? Because you may not need all the help, maybe you just need more information, which we have resources for that. Or maybe you need a personalized plan if you are, really stuck and you really want your hand held. So hope you guys enjoy this one. I really enjoy this. And, I'm just happy a lot of this resonated with you guys. My goal is to help as many people recover from this as possible and get to a point where they can make it to the Thriver retreat we're going to be hosting every year. We're already looking at next year for the Thriver retreat. So essentially all the people who have worked with us or have had CFS and recovered, they go to the Thriver retreat where we all just celebrate and celebrate basically our victory over CFS and prove the system wrong, that you can recover from this. And we just all celebrate, go do a short little hike, go watch the sunrise and the sunset, have dinner together, and really share our stories and show the world that, hey, it's possible to recover. So everybody on this call, you guys are like the pioneers with the recoveries that you're going to have. And I say it with certainty because I've seen it so many times. There's people who can't even make it to a call like this. They can't even do a Zoom call, but they recover, and we've worked with them. So I know it's absolutely possible. And you guys are the pioneers of the CFS space. 20 years down the road, we're going to have the solutions for it. And you guys will be inspirations to other people. So when you get better, I'll leave it with this. I know I'm rambling a little bit. By helping yourself get better and getting your life back, you're not just changing your life, you're changing everybody else around you. Your mom, your dad, your brothers, sisters, friends, you're going to be able to be a contribution to society. So whenever you feel like giving up or like this is too tough, just know you're not fighting just for you. You're fighting for everybody around you and everybody that you love and all the people who you're going to be a part of in the future, all those other people's lives. So yeah, man, I'm getting teary-eyed just talking about it, just knowing the impact that the people on this call can have. I'm just one person, but think about all the videos I put out and all the people I was able to help. And we're just getting started. So do this for you, do this for the people around you and all the people in your future who you're going to be able to impact. It's bigger than just you. There's a bigger picture than that. So take it easy, guys. Hope you have a great day and took a lot of value out of this call. And we will see you guys on the next one. And again, I'm going to leave a link down below if you wanted to see if you're a good fit for any of our programs. We'd love to help you hands-on and help you get to thriving health in the fastest way possible. So always remember, you guys are thrivers and you are just one mind shift away from living life with thriving health. See you guys on the next one. Cheers.